If everything can be paused, I will ask the spiritual court to put death on hold, so we can have time to breathe, and the rain of tears shall stop.
I have an appeal to the Supreme Court of Justice and Truth. Your mediation is necessary. Pause everything for a moment.
You see this picture? Now South African swimming team, now be this. This other one where you they see, now South African Science Olympiad team, now be that. And this other one where you they see, now South African Mathematics Olympiad team, now be that. You no see any black South African inside. Any meaningful thing where they happen for South Africa, you no go ever see any black South African inside. They are busy drinking nyaope, dancing on my piano on the street, smoking, living reckless life. When better thing come, when people, other black Africans from other country come, start to make meaningful things out of their life, they go begin to jealous. You understand? They know they do anything with their life, anything good, they know they do. These people are slaves in their own country. Now the white, they rule South African indirectly. The only problem where black South Africans get now, their fellow black Africans where they their country. Imagine a black man calling a black man, a fellow black man, foreigner in a country where whites are citizens. In Africa here. Very shameless fools. South Africans now go learn new thing and now go learn and hard. Nobody go anywhere. Now no fit chase anywhere from that South Africa. Peace and love. I am Mentos of Benue.
First of all, I would like to begin by saying there are a few things that I've learned in life, that it's important to listen and understand where people are coming from and understand their perspectives before you can even say anything. Listening, it's very important. And I think I've done my homework very well to listen to the concerns which my brother raised here. And I would like to say it is important as well to stand on the side of the truth, because in most cases, people want to align with lies. Why? Because lies are entertaining. Lies are entertaining because even if you are a gossiper, or maybe you want to gossip about something, you need to add some spices there so that at least it can be entertaining, so that people can continue listening, so that people can be willing to continue listening to you, regardless of the duration of the time you will spend gossiping or telling them all these lies. That is why I'm it's important to stand on the side of the truth. But right now, I have to admit that the truth has been gone down. So many people are not interested in the truth. They're interested in gossip. In this video, I will try by all means to break down almost every concern or every word which my brother said in this video. It's important so that we can have a better understanding or a different perspective before we can judge. So without any waste of time, let's get started.
You see this picture? Now South African swimming team, now be this. This other one where you they see, now South African Science Olympiad team, now be that. And this other one where you they see, now South African Mathematics Olympiad team, now be that. You no see any black South African inside. Any meaningful thing where they happen for South Africa, you no go ever see any black South African inside. They are.
First of all, I would like to admit that those people in those pictures, you cannot see a South African or a black South African amongst those people. Probably they represented South Africa elsewhere. It can be in the Olympics. It can be like maybe somewhere overseas. They may have represented South Africa there, and you don't see a black person from South Africa. I get it. But you have to understand where South Africa is coming from, because some people, they always sing about the freedom of South Africa. South Africa was not freed in 1994. And again, we have to understand that majority of black people here in South Africa, they go to public schools because they cannot afford private schools. Majority of them. And when it comes to the education system here in South Africa, it's completely bad in public schools. Even in private schools, it's still bad there and there, especially for a black child. But there are few things that we need to keep it in mind, is that if you are a disadvantaged, or if you are disadvantaged here in South Africa, you won't get, for an example, an opportunity to represent South Africa elsewhere. Why? Because first of all, you have to understand that government doesn't care. They just feed you the education which they need to feed you. And that's all. And then we have to understand again that when it comes to those people who will represent South Africa, in most cases, they come from private schools. They're chosen from private schools. Why? Because private schools are funded. And who are the funders in those private schools? The white companies. And they choose who they want to fund. They choose who they want to sponsor. Right now, as we speak, South Africa is still under colonialism. South Africa is still under oppression. So freedom is just a scam. Freedom is just a lie. Because I have to break it down so that you can understand everything to the fullest. There are many young people from South Africa who went through public schools and etc. And they are very intelligent. They are very smart. They can solve a lot of our problems here in South Africa. But they don't get that opportunity because no one will invest in them. No one will recognize their talent. No one will recognize their skills and their abilities. Why? Because the investor or the funder will always decide who to fund. Right now, as we speak, when it comes to economy here in South Africa, we have to admit that 80 to 90% is owned by white people, is owned by the descendants of the colonizers. This is the truth. This is the truth. So that is why in those pictures, you don't see a black child. That's the reason. For an example, the people who accompanied President Ramaphosa last year, if I'm not mistaken, to meet Donald Trump, who were they? Who were they? Majority of them, they were white people. Were white people. What does this mean? It means when it comes to representing South Africa internationally, you have to expect them to represent South Africa. Why? Because we are coming from the apartheid system, and right now we are still in fake independence. The government is not doing anything to empower South Africans. Economic transition, they're not doing anything when it comes to that. So this is the truth, that in those pictures, you cannot expect to see black people. But does this mean you cannot find South Africa in anything meaningful? That's not true. That's not the truth. It's just a lie. It's just a lie, because we have to define what do you mean by saying something is meaningful. If you say this thing is meaningful, what do you mean? There are many South Africans who participate in meaningful things. We can talk about education, entertainment, TV, radio, in politics, even if I may disagree with them sometimes, but you'll find them there. We can talk about the legal sector, technology, science, and many other things. They are there. They are there. Sometimes you may not see them in numbers based on some of the things that I've already stated. But we have to understand that, or we have to know that it's a lie to say South Africans cannot be found in anything meaningful. I criticize South Africa where I have to criticize. When I criticize the government, I have to criticize them genuinely so. But I have to admit that there are many South Africans, black South Africans, as individuals who participate in things that are useful. It can be social media. It can be on television, radio, sports, and many other things. So this is a lie, because if I want to be biased, if I want to lie, in other words, I need to choose whatever I wanna choose. I have to select whatever I want to select. So that is why our brother here selected those images. Even though we have a lot of challenges here in South Africa, I just want to admit that South Africa, or black South Africans, are representing South Africa in many ways. In many ways and in numbers. I'm talking about black South Africans. In other words, in meaningful things, according to the words of our brother here. But again, I want to say these things should not separate us. These things should not, like for an example, divide us. The most important thing is just to listen to people and then use logic at the same time. So this is what I'm trying to do.
Abusive, drinking nyaope, dancing amapiano on the street, smoking, living reckless life. When better things come, when people, other black Africans from other countries come, start to make meaningful things out of their life, they will begin to jealous. You understand? They know they do anything with their life, anything good, they know they do. These people are slaves in their own country. Now the whites, they rule South Africa indirectly.
First of all, I would like to admit again that we as Africans, we come from a background of colonialism, and colonialism was not a good thing. And as a result, we are suffering in different ways. Right now in DRC, there are many children who have to go to work instead of going to school. I'm talking about a 10-year-old, 9-year-old. They have to go to work in many countries here in Africa because there's absolutely nothing they can do. It's as a result of colonialism. Why? Because those countries are ruled by the colonizers, or are still under the rulership of the colonizers. It's not only South Africa. So South Africa, again, is suffering in a different way. In other words, when it comes to alcohol and many other things, yes, because these are the consequences of colonialism, or is as a result of colonialism. Some people may not agree, but I have to break it down so that everybody can understand why I'm saying this. All these countries here in Africa are still controlled by the colonizers. The reason we have a lot of Africans, we can talk about Mozambicans, Zimbabweans, Nigerians, and many others who come from their countries to South Africa. This is a sign that their countries are still suffering from colonialism. In other words, the leaders in those countries are puppets. In other words, while they are busy sending the minerals out of Africa, the people are suffering, the people are stranded. Then they have to, like, for an example, navigate and go and look for other opportunities elsewhere. And South Africa is one of those countries where they can go. UK is one of those countries, that are with European countries, and America as well. So when you see these brothers and sisters from Africa in UK, in America, and in other countries, that's a sign. Majority of them left their countries not because they wanted to explore or maybe to relocate. It's because they had no option but to leave their countries, because their countries were not conducive for them economically. That is why they left. That is why right now they are in Europe. That is why right now they are in America. And if you may ask them if they are willing to go back to their countries, some of them will tell you that they are not willing. They'll never go back to their countries. Why? This is a sign that their countries are suffering from colonialism. So same applies to South Africa, because you have to understand that the colonial masters, they always have a strategy. What can we do? In other words, to make these people calm, to make these people not to see that we are stealing their minerals. Right now, they want to come to their economy. In other words, they want to transition into the economy. In other words, this will be a threat to the colonizers. So what can we do? We have to do something. We have to do something for them. So that is why they will invest in entertainment. Even though they don't like you, but they will invest in entertainment. They will invest in all these things. So that at the end of the day, you spend your time consuming alcohol, spend your time thinking that by drinking alcohol, your stress will go away, all these challenges will go away. So this is a strategy of the colonizer, so that they can continue being busy taking the minerals out of Africa. This is the very same strategy they are doing in other countries, but they may do it different in other countries. In other words, they may like talk to those leaders to say, we will do everything for you. In other words, you live a comfortable life, luxurious life. In other words, they'll make sure that they build an empire for that particular leader, so that at the end of the day, that leader can bow down to them. And as the leaders are bowing down to the colonizers, who suffers? The people. So that is why some of the people, they are not moving to South Africa, they are not moving to Germany, they are not moving to UK, America, or even to China, because they love going to those countries. It's because they don't have a choice. It's because they don't have a choice. Why? Because the leaders are still under colonialism. South Africa is directly controlled by white supremacy, is controlled by the colonizers. These other countries are indirectly controlled by the colonizers. But how do you see that they are controlled by the colonizers? Look at their economy. Look where the minerals are going. In other words, who creates tension in those countries. We can talk about coup d'etats, we can talk about civil wars and many other things. Who is in charge in those countries? The very same colonizer, to the point whereby you have to now move to other countries. But it doesn't mean at the end of the day, everybody will move to other countries. Others will have to persevere the circumstance. But here's the thing that we need to understand with the colonizer. The colonizer won't oppress everybody. The colonizer will give others opportunities, that you should become a teacher, you should become a principal, you should become like a health practitioner, and etc., so that they can regard you as a middle class. Because they know that if there are people that are called a middle class, then those who are poor, not by choice, but because of colonialism, they have to try by all means to work hard so that they can become like a middle class, or so that they can fit under the category of a middle class. But those who are suffering, those who cannot fit in this category, they'll have to persevere any circumstance. But at the end of the day, some of them will say, you know what? We have to relocate. We have to go to other countries. Right now, as we speak, we have a lot of Africans. I can talk about women in particular in Saudi Arabia, in Dubai, and in all these other countries. And it's bad for them. They even go to those countries by choice to say, I want to go to Dubai. I want to go to Saudi Arabia. No. It's because of the living condition in their countries. Africa in general is colonized. Sometimes you can identify people that they are colonized because of how they drink alcohol. They don't care. Some are moving from other countries so that they can, so that they can be involved in criminality. That's a sign again that these people have been colonized and they don't love one another. So that is why it's easy for them to sell the powder to their own kids. In other words, to the children of their own brothers and sisters. It's because they don't love one another. And how can you identify someone that they don't love themselves? It's not just because of xenophobia. It's because of a lot of things. They don't love their natural hair. They don't love their natural skin. It's happening all over Africa. In other words, Africa is under colonialism. It's under colonialism. We have to admit that.
The only problem where black South Africans get now, their fellow black Africans where they their country. Imagine a black man calling a fellow black man foreigner in a country where whites are citizens. In Africa.
Yes, it's happening. It's happening. It's not the right thing, but it's happening. The reason it's happening is because of our leaders combined. It's not because of the people. It's because of the leaders. Because we have to understand that we were born into the system. And if you were born into the system, you will align with everything that the system says. That is why when it comes to the unity of Africa, we should not only blame South Africa. We should not shift the blame on South Africa. What are these other leaders doing? What will they do, or what will they say, or how will they react if you tell them to leave their presidential office so that Africa can be united. Will they accept that? Absolutely not. Everyone is protecting their popularity, their pocket, and everything. And the colonizer won't allow that to happen. If I go to Nigeria, if I go everywhere here in Africa, I will be regarded as a foreigner according to the system, because it's on paper that I don't belong to Nigeria. I don't belong to Ghana. Even though I'm still in Africa. Yes, my brothers and sisters may say, we are brothers. We are all together. But the system says, I'm a foreigner. This is where the education systems comes in. This is where justice comes in. If you want to deal with this, if you want to destroy this, in other words, all the presidents, the leaders of Africa should come together, hold a summit, hold a conference to say, from now on, we have to start by removing all these colonial borders. In other words, we have to remove the system because it's on paper. Because the document that I'm holding tells me that I'm a foreigner. I have to be represented by a foreign minister. In other words, everywhere you go. But right now, every problem is upon South Africa. So right now, it seems as if South Africa is a problem. But let's put South Africa aside. Let's put South Africa aside. Why can't these countries, all countries of Africa, come together and become one and destroy the colonial borders? So that it can be easy for them to blame South Africa and say, South Africa, why are you not killing your colonial borders as well? So that all of us can be one. So the countries that are trying right now is Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. These are the countries that are trying by all means to unite, to unite Africans. But other countries, they don't even talk about what is happening in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. They don't care. They don't care. Why? Because unity is a threat to them. Unity is a threat to them. In other words, if pastors can fail to unite, even though they talk about love daily, if they can fail to unite, do you think it's easy for these crooks to unite? The politicians? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. In other words, in a small area, you will find a big church which is big enough to accommodate everybody who is living in that area. But still, you will find other small churches around, 10 of them, 20 of them. And if you go inside, the other church has 10 members. The other one has 20 members. And the other one has like 15 members. You ask yourself, why these people are not coming together? Why these people are not coming together? It's because people don't like unity. They just talk about it when it's necessary. So African leaders are not interested in this unity. That is why other Africans will move from their countries to other countries. Like for an example, many of them or some of them have moved from their countries to South Africa. So right now, South Africa is under pressure economically, in terms of law, in terms of service delivery. Why? Because we have the Department of Labor, which is not doing anything to follow the laws. Why? Because most of those people are corrupt. Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa spoke about this corruption in one of his recent presentations, because he is aware that there's a corruption in Labor Department, because there are laws that says when it comes to certain jobs, foreigners or non-South Africans, whether black or white, should not participate in those vacancies, in those jobs, because they are reserved for South Africans only. Then, in other words, if Labor Department is going to break that law and allow the companies to do as they please because it's their responsibility to inspect these companies, what do you expect people to do? People will be frustrated. Why? Because the employers are looking for cheap laborers. It doesn't mean they love you because you are from Mozambique, you are from Zimbabwe, you are from Angola, you are from Congo. No, it doesn't mean they like you. If they don't like me, they don't like you. But they prefer you because you are a cheap labor. It doesn't mean you are cheap, but it's because you will accept whatever they present on a table. Why? Because you are not documented. Because every day they will keep on like intimidating you that they will fire you. You see, they will fire you. So you end up working overtime that is not even paid. Then as a result, because other companies will see that, okay, other companies are doing this and they're making profit. In other words, they're able to like accumulate whatever they want to accumulate. This is what will happen. Other companies will do the same thing. Other companies will do to the point whereby the majority of South Africans are unemployed. This is what is happening. So now South Africans are frustrated. Then you have to know, if the government is not listening, you cannot control the frustration. Why? Because frustration is like hurricane. It's like tornado. It doesn't choose. Tornado doesn't say, okay, because this is a good person, I won't destroy his house. It's not like that. So that is why, as a result of this frustration, we have what people call xenophobia. But I call it frustration. But I don't have a problem when others call it xenophobia.
Africa here. Very shameless fools. South Africans now go learn new thing and now go learn and hard. Nobody go anywhere. Now no fit chase anywhere from that South Africa. Peace and love. I am meant to.
Again, I just want to talk about this thing of Nyaupe. If you are, because we have to understand that the colonial masters are very strategic. They are some people may deny this, but the colonial masters are very strategic. When it comes to Nyaupe, we have to understand that if you are a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, you cannot, like, in other words, you are not responsible to make right decisions. People who are smoking Nyaupe here in South Africa, they are at the age of 10, 15, maybe 17, and those maybe 20-something, maybe. But majority of them, they are below maybe 17 years. They are smoking Nyaupe. If you are 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old, you are not responsible to make right decisions. That is why you have to be represented by a guardian. You have to be represented by a parent. So we cannot ridicule them. We cannot ridicule them. So that is why this stuff is sold to children, because they know that they don't have that ability to decide to say, this is wrong and this is right. They don't have that ability. So that is why they are targeting the young ones. Just like King Leopold II, he was like, you have to target the younger ones and teach them that poverty is a good thing so that they can accept it. In the meantime, we will take everything in their own land. The system is also using the very same strategy. Target the younger ones. That's a strategy. This is the truth. So we should not ridicule them. In other words, if you were fortunate enough not to be involved in these things at a young age, at a 10-year-old, 15-year-old, it doesn't mean you were smart. It's just that probably you were fortunate enough to be raised in a solid family, or maybe in a good neighborhood, in a right society. That is why you were not exposed to these things. And again, if you were raised in a bad society, but by grace you are not involved in these things, we have to say, indeed, it's by grace. Indeed, it's by grace. But we have to understand, majority of the people, in other words, a 10-year-old doesn't have that capacity to say, let me reject this because this is right, this is wrong. Let me accept this because this is right. They don't have that capacity. These are the things that we need to understand. They don't have that ability. They don't have that power. That is why they have to be targeted. Because for you to destroy the nation, you have to focus on the younger ones. But in short, as I come to the end of the video, I want to say, if you want to criticize South Africa, what they are doing, because I don't like for an example, encourage people killing their brothers and sisters, hating their brothers and sisters, beating their brothers and sisters. I'm not encouraging that. But I know the corruption that is in South Africa, and I understand the frustration that people are frustrated. Don't listen to politicians. Don't listen to these people who call themselves Pan-Africanists. Don't listen to them. When the situation is like this, they don't use logic. They don't use logic. They'll try by all means to come up with a clip of Malcolm X, a small clip of Malcolm X, a small clip of Thomas Sankara, a small clip of Ibrahim Traore. They will try by all means to bring all these small clips, but without using logic. They don't want to use logic. They don't want to use logic. Because right now, as we speak, we should be talking about businesses that were established by political parties or politicians, but none. We should be talking about the schools, universities that were established by politicians or Pan-Africanists. But guess what? None. So that is why when it comes to politicians, don't listen to these people, because these people, whenever they talk, they are like, you have to remember me. In other words, whenever they talk because they want to be like certain leaders. They want to be remembered by everybody else. It is important to listen to what the people are saying. People on the ground are frustrated. Why? It's because a politician has a salary. These politicians, they have allowances and etc. So that is why for them claiming to be speaking on behalf of the people is a joke to me. It doesn't make sense to me, because they don't speak the language of the people. They don't empathize with the people on the ground, because people on the ground are frustrated. In other words, when it comes to a politician has time to say, you know what, let me write a book. Okay, let me, for an example, present this idea to the people. They have the entire time. Why? Because there are people who are behind them. They have allowances, they have money, they have all these things. But when it comes to someone on the ground, it's completely different, because that person is thinking about his family. He's thinking about his stomach. He's thinking about his daily needs. Unless he does something, he will have to sleep with hunger. His family will have to suffer. So he has to try by all means. But while he's trying by all means, and we have departments like Labor and Home Affairs, which are breaking the constitutional laws, they get frustrated. They get frustrated. In other words, if one person is frustrated, we can say, okay, maybe we're still safe. If 2 people, 5 people, 10 people are frustrated, we can still say, okay. But if thousands and millions of people are frustrated, then this is what you will see. This is what you will see. And the mainstream media and everybody else will say, here is xenophobia. Just so that everybody can watch their channels. But because they know that if they can say this is a frustration, then they will be fighting against the colonizers. Because if you address it as a frustration, then it means now you're on the side of the truth. Because if you present it like that, then you have to come up with alternatives or solutions to say, you know what, how to deal with this frustration and who is the cause of this frustration. Then you will have to point to Labor Department, Home Affairs, and many other people, the ministers, and etc. Until you find that the root cause of the problem is the colonizer. So they don't want that. They want you to call it xenophobia, so that you can say the source of the problem is hate, when it's not the truth. Right now, as you speak, you are living in America, you were born and raised in America as a black person. And right now, as you speak, there's a great number of people, black people, who are unemployed in South Africa. 60%, if I'm not mistaken. Just imagine if thousands and thousands of us can move to the United States of America and go and work there. And now we are being prioritized over the people who are living in America, especially black Americans who are living in America, who were born and raised in America. Just imagine, how will they feel? How will they feel? The frustration amongst them will start growing as well. Will start growing. Then we will start saying, no, but we look like you, we look the same. But not on paper. Not on paper. Because on paper, they'll be like, no, we are Americans. They'll be like, we are Americans. Why the system is prioritizing you? They will be frustrated. And frustration creates tension. We have to understand it. I can make the same example with Nigeria. If now, because South Africa is suffering from unemployment, 60% of young people are not working. If these young people now can decide to go and stay in Ghana, Nigeria, what will happen? What will happen? Frustrations amongst Nigerians will rise. This is the same thing that is happening here in South Africa. And many people don't want to face it. Many people don't want to talk about it. Just want to talk about, just imagine another African calling another African a foreigner in Africa, something like that. We have borders. If I go to Angola, on paper, I'm a foreigner. On paper, I'm a foreigner. Yes, my brothers and sisters will say, okay, you are our brother, you are brother. But if I do something wrong, maybe I offend them, they'll quickly remind me that I am a foreigner. Why? Because of the paper. Because the paperwork is based on the system. The borders are there based on the system. Then in their minds, they're like, this is a foreigner. In other words, South Africans are willing to call everybody their brother. But the moment you start calling them lazy, they have to remind you that according to the paperwork and according to the borders, you don't belong to South Africa. In other words, if the system again oppress them, these companies, they favor non-South Africans because they can pay them less, then South Africans will remind their brothers and sisters again that based on paper, you don't belong here. This is what will happen. When the situation is like this, what is the solution? The solution is that all African leaders should come together and discuss these issues and make sure that all these countries are economically developed to the fullest. And then they destroy all these borders. The moment they destroy these borders, everybody will have a choice to go to Addis Ababa, to go to Harare, to go to Burkina Faso, Nigeria. Everybody will have a choice. In other words, there will be no country which will be under pressure. Because right now, South Africa is under pressure. And the frustration, or as the frustration rises, it will make your brother to call you a foreigner.
If everything can be paused, I will ask the spiritual court to put death on hold so we can have time to breathe, and the rain of tears shall stop.
I have an appeal to the Supreme Court of Justice and Truth. Your mediation is necessary. Pause everything for a moment.